Day 2 of the 2022 Absa Cape Epic is the first marathon stage of the race. Hosted once again as the Prologue was the day before by Lourensford Wine Estate, hot temperatures were predicted. One of South Africa's oldest wine farms, dating back to 1700, it is the home to vineyards, orchards and spectacular mountain biking trails. As the host of the Prologue on Stage 1, Lourensford was also home for the night of the race village, providing a rare transfer-free transition between the first and second days of the event. The Prologue had provided a fittingly dramatic opening to the race. In the women's competition, the three-time winner Ariane Luthi and the inaugural Absa African jersey winner Amy Wakefield had teamed up as Team Simtech ZA. Together they managed the third best time of the day. The all-South African combination from Faces Roller were 45 seconds faster than the Swiss South African team. Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss excelled on their home trails, setting a time which looked tough to beat. However, they were up against one of the world's best multidisciplinary cyclists. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot absolutely blitzed the Prologue course. The French rider, who has held marathon, cross-country, cyclocross and road world titles, was in imperious form. She led Robin de Groot through the 24-kilometre route in a stunning 1 hour, 9 minutes and 5 seconds. This ensured that the BMC MTB racing team took the stage honours, and along with it the first CM.com Orange Leaders jerseys of the 2022 Absa Cape Epic. Thus, Ferrand-Prévot and de Groot's advantage over Lill and Strauss, who hold the red Absa African jerseys, was 42 seconds going into Stage 1. Simtech ZA were third, just 4 seconds ahead of 91 Songo Specialised in fourth. In the men's race, the third fastest team on the day was the Canyon Northwave MTB combination of Andreas Seewald and Martin Storsek. The reigning marathon world champion, resplendent in his rainbow jersey, and his Czech partner were happy to limit their losses to the cross-country speedsters. The Absa Cape Epic Prologue is famous for delivering surprise results. In 2022, the Speed Company racing team put their names forth as dark horses for the overall title. Georg Egger and Lukas Baum upset a number of favourites and raced to the second fastest time on the stage. The German combination were only beaten by the team with number 1 on their bike boards. Defending champion Matt Beers and his new Toyota 91 Specialized teammate Chris Blevins powered through the course, stopping the clock in the fastest time of the day. Their 58 minutes and 6 seconds was enough for a comfortable stage victory, especially after the catastrophic rear-wheel puncture which cost Nino Schurter and Lars Forster 4 minutes and 39 seconds. Thus, Beers and Blevins were able to step up onto the podium to claim the first yellow Chivita jerseys of the race. Toyota 91 Specialized advantage over Canyon Northwave in third was 1 minute and 6 seconds. Schurter and Forster's teammates Andriy Frischnecht and Yuri Ragnoli were fourth fastest on the day. The Ibuko Type Dev combination of Peter de Toy and Marco Hubert were the best placed all-African team. They would start Stage 1 in the red Absa African jerseys, while the Exaro jersey competition was led by Tlalisani Ndebele and Tlotlo Selala of Exaro Academy 1. The scene was set for a thrilling Stage 1, and the terrain was perfectly poised to provide a grueling battleground. 92 kilometres with a staggering 2,850 metres of climbing were on the cards, starting with the King's Climb, followed by stinging vineyard kickers and the brutal grind back into Lourensford via the saddle. The final 40 kilometres were anything but downhill. More sense in the vast Lourensford estate provided a tricky second half of the stage, before the lower kilometres of the Lourensford Ultimate led the teams home after a massive marathon stage. In the start chute, the men were nervously awaiting the starters' orders. Mass starts always add a slightly frenetic dynamic to the opening kilometres, and it pays to remain calm before the storm. The men in yellow were content, but Scott Stram's Nino Schurter was intent on putting the previous day's misfortune behind him.
Yeah, for sure wasn't the start we were hoping for at the Prologue, but that's racing. It's still 7 days of racing. Mostly the first two stages are quite fast, so let's see how it's today, but it's for sure a stage that suits us quite well.
With 4 minutes and 39 seconds to make up on the race leaders, Schurter and Lars Forster would have their work cut out for them on Stage 1. But they set out like a team on a mission. Their job of staying up near the front of the field was made easier by climbing from the gun. The route, along with a high pace at the front of the race, soon whittled down the lead group. Only the very strongest teams would be contesting for Stage 1 honours. Though too early in the race to be the Queen stage, it could, upon reflection, prove the pivotal day. In the women's race, the mood was one of nervous expectation. The riders knew the scope of the challenge ahead, but recognised that it presented opportunities to reshape the general classification in their favour.
No, we're super excited for the guys. They did an amazing performance. Obviously, Haley and I think came a little bit short from our goal, but we were steady. We feel like we didn't burn any matches, so we're looking forward to the longer stages because that's really where the race begins.
The women in orange knew they would be in for an epic battle.
Yeah, I think it will be a tough one, and we had a good race yesterday, so yeah, we will see how the legs are today, but at least we had a good sleep, and yeah, we just will see how it's going the first kilometers, and we will see what we can do.
They would not be the only team to cautiously feel out their legs and see what they could do. The opening kilometres provided little room for a relaxed warm-up, however, with climbing right from the off. Soon the women in red, Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss, were driving up the pace and thinning out the lead CM.com women's group. The King's Climb was the first of the day's plethora of climbs. It stretched high above the urban sprawl of Somerset West into the pristine Helderberg Nature Reserve. Canyon Northwave's Andreas Seerwald and Martin Stosek were soon marshalling the pace. The pair had proven to be formidable climbers in the 2021 race and were soaring up the steepest gradients again on 2022 Stage 1. Early strength was not a guarantee of a good day, however. The trail still had many a twist in its tail, and some fun to dispense too on the Helderberg Trail's single-track descent. From the summit of King's Climb, the single-track king, Nino Schurter, came to the fore. The Scots Ram star delivered a showcase of his vast array of technical skills, flowing and floating through the twisting trails. On the undulating trails through the famed Stellenbosch wine region, the group came back together. Along with Scots Ram and the men in yellow Toyota 91 Specialized were Canyon Northwave, Buff Megamo, Speed Company Racing, the two Willia Pirelli teams, Bulls, Santa Cruz and Scott Calabandida. Then disaster struck. Both Nino Schurter and Georg Egger punctured at the same moment. While Speed Company Racing got underway after bombing Egger's tyre, Scots Ram were less fortunate. Schurter was in the process of putting a tube into his rear wheel when the Scots Ram Duo team arrived on the scene. Henri Frischneck whipped out his rear wheel to replace Schurter's, but the puncture still cost him the best part of 7 minutes. He was not the only one whose luck had failed. Matt Beers was battling. He had been vomiting and struggling to hold down food. There can be no worse place than the saddle to run flat, or to launch the second madcap chase in as many days. Having chased to catch up, the Speed Company Racing team were the first to be forced off their bikes to push. Ahead, Matt Beers forged valiantly on. But the question loomed, was the South African marathon champion riding himself into a hole he didn't have the energy to dig himself out of? When Canyon Northwave and Buff Megamo upped their pace, Beers, along with the Santa Cruz team, were powerless to resist. Andreas Seerwald and Martin Stosek gradually edged away, while Jose Diaz and Hans Becking gritted their teeth and followed as best they could. Behind, Maxime Marot and Chris Blevins were nursing their teammates Keegan Swenson and Matt Beers to the summit of the climb. On paper, easier kilometres were to come. Further back, the Willia Pirelli team of Fabian Ravensteiner and Wout Allemann led a tattered group to the top of the climb. The second half of the stage would be a battle of pure survival rather than a race to the finish. Except for Nino Schurter. He was on a charge to regain time and would drive Lars Forster relentlessly on. In the CM.com women's race, the early pace setters Faces Roller continued to drag a select group of teams clear on King's Climb. Present in the group were 91 Songo Specialized, BMC MTB Racing and Private Client Holdings. Team Simtech ZA were riding their own pace. Ariane Luty and Amy Wakefield had decided to conserve energy for the saddle climb later in the day. They would spend much of the next hour yo-yoing to and off the lead group as the Absa African jersey wearers Lil and Strauss set a variable tempo. The on and off pace, along with the steep gradient, took its toll on Robin de Groot. Having helped Pauline Ferrand-Prévot in the opening stage, the South African had dug deep the day before. She was soon paying the price on stage 1, but was too resolute to let the group go without a fight. The same was true for Marie Rabi and Hayley Preen. Eventually the elastic snapped and near the summit Faces Roller 91 Songo Specialized slipped away. This gave the cross-country specialists a clear run into the Helderberg trails. The American-Argentine combination flew through the single-track descent, stretching the South Africans behind them to breaking point, as Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss had done to the other teams on the climb. Hayley Batten's supreme skills allowed Sofia Gomez-Villafan a virtual magic carpet ride. With the short course world champion setting the lines, all the double Argentine champion had to do was to follow and stay off the brakes. The shots she had taken climbing made it impossible and probably downright dangerous for Robin de Groot to attempt to match their descending speed. Batten's technical prowess was such that Lill and Strauss were well off her and Gomez-Villafan's wheels by the foot of the Helderberg Trails descent. This gave them the embryo of an advantage, which they incubated over the coming kilometres, gradually growing it to a sizable margin. The 91 Songo Specialized team flew through the spectacular Waterford winery, not pausing to take in the magnificent architecture or the cheers of the gathered crowd. It seemed they were on course for a dominant victory. A quick pause at the day's second water point refueled the leaders for the next challenge, the day's most significant climb, the saddle. Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss were composed in pursuit, knowing that the climb to come would present ample opportunity to reel in the leaders should Faces Roller prove powerful enough. A minute back, Simtech ZA had caught BMC MTB Racing and were working their way back into contention. On the climb to the saddle, the leaders were forced off their bikes. The gradient was such that everyone walked, yet some did so for shorter than others and made up rather than lost time. Sofia Gomez-Villafan and Hayley Batten were among the latter. Having paced themselves to perfection, the Simtech ZA team of Ariane Luty and Amy Wakefield had ridden more of the climb and ascended into a potential stage-winning position. They passed 91 Songo Specialized on the trails and soon left Gomez-Villafan and Batten in their wake. Looking entirely comfortable on the most brutal gradients, as one may expect from a Swiss mounted goat and two-time single-speed world champion, Luty and Wakefield simply powered away from their rivals. Over the summit, Buff Megamo regained contact with Canyon Northwave. Together the teams worked to extend their advantage. Behind the leaders, Santa Cruz, Toyota 91 Specialized and the Willia Pirelli teams were in damage limitation mode, though the latter were recovering best. Further back, Scott's Ram were racing to make up as much time as possible after their pre-climb puncture. Nino Schurter was in full send mode. Simon Schneller and Usuba, meanwhile, were limping towards the finish, their general classification hopes dashed by the saddle. Buko Type Dev were losing time too, but their Absa African jersey rivals are hardly flying either, so their troubles were not as catastrophic. Unaware of the destruction behind them, Andreas Seerwald and Martin Stosek were forging ahead. The Canyon Northwave team had distanced Buff Megamo and were leading solo. But the Dutch-Portuguese combination were not letting them slip away easily. Down the trail, Scott's Ram had caught the Speed Company Racing and Scott Calabandida teams. While Schurter's charge was paying dividends, Matt Beer's troubles were deepening. Even helping hands from his partner Plevens were not aiding him in maintaining momentum. He would have been highly envious of the easy pace of Seerwald and Stosek. The Canyon Northwave team powered through the final kilometres and raced to a commanding stage victory. There can be no doubt after that performance they are the new favourites for the Absa Cape Epic title. But as the race thus far has proved, one day's winners can quickly become the next day's losers. Jose Diaz and Hans Becking crossed the line in second, but were a distant 3 minutes and 23 seconds behind the stage winners. 1 minute and 26 seconds later, Fabian Ravensteiner and Wout Allemann completed the podium for Willia Pirelli. A storming ride saw Nino Schurter and Lars Forster cross the finish line in 5th place. An exhausted and drained looking Matt Beers rolled into Lourensford in 12th on the day. It will take a Herculean effort to turn the negative momentum positive for the Toyota 91 Specialized team on stage 2. Especially as Canyon Northwave MTB now hold all the cards. Andreas Seerwald and Martin Stosek's winning time was 3 hours 58 minutes and 23 seconds. The story of the day was behind the podium places, however, where Nino Schurter and Lars Forster's fight back and Matt Beers and Chris Blevins' hemorrhaging of time drew attention. Scots Ram limited their losses to 5 minutes and 12 seconds, while Toyota 91 Specialized conceded 9 minutes and 21 seconds. This means that Canyon Northwave now lead the 2022 Absa Cape Epic over Buff Megamo by 5 minutes and 4 seconds. Santa Cruz are 3rd, Toyota 91 Specialized 7th and Scots Ram 8th. Insect Science's Keegan Bontekoning and Arno de Troy moved into the top 10, claiming the Absa African jerseys in the process.
To take the lead was basically only I decided to make a move at the close to the end of the long climb to have it nice in the downhill and bite a bit less dust. And then we did not would not say we did pushed at the limit then all the time, but just a nice good pace and try to don't waste our energy but ride smart and fast. And when it was maybe 20k to go, I think we knew now we pushed through, and if we don't crash, we have it.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was going to be tough from the get-go, and it was. I felt all right. It wasn't fantastic. I could feel something wasn't right with my body, and yeah, just slowly my stomach just started to knot up, and I was just vomiting every gel I put in. It was just coming out, and didn't really. There's not much you can do at that point. Just try to soldier on as much as I could, but yeah, I'm extremely disappointed, and I feel like I've let down SA and the team, so I need to get my shit together and start harden up, put some cement in my breakfast for the rest of the epic.
Yeah, we actually had a good start. We had the front from the beginning, felt really strong, made a hard race from the beginning. And then unfortunately, just before the big climb, when we had actually big plans for this climb, I had just again a flat tire in the back with a huge cut in the tire, somewhere in the grass. Probably was a bit of glass or I don't know, something really sharp. The cut that long. So we couldn't fix it with a plug, so we had to take it off, put a tube in. Luckily then Andre came, we changed reel, but yeah, we lost again a lot of time. And then 2 days in a row, such bad luck. It's also mentally not easy. It's hard to push then, to be able to push hard again. But yeah, that's racing.
Over the Saddle Summit, the Simtech ZA team had ridden themselves into a commanding position in the CM.com women's race. Ariane Luthi and Amy Wakefield appeared to have the contest under control as they paced their efforts through the remote northern reaches of Lourensford Estate. Sadly, their smooth run to the finish was interrupted by a rear wheel puncture for Luthi. Having a pinch flat, the hole in the Swiss rider's sidewall was near her wheel's rim. As such, it was difficult to plug effectively. Though she and Wakefield managed to reinflate the wheel, it continued to lose air over the next 5 kilometres, forcing the Simtech team to stop repeatedly to reinflate it. By the time they reached the tech zone at the 74 kilometre mark, they had no choice but to stop for a replacement wheel. But the wheel change cost them further time and the lead on the trail. One moment of misfortune, it cost them 3 minutes and a stage win. Simtech's loss was 91 Songo Specialized gain. Having recovered somewhat from the exertions of the saddle climb, Sofia Gomez-Villafan and Hayley Batten found themselves back in the lead. The pair rode the final 18 kilometres at a consistently high but safe pace, racing intelligently after a long day on the bike. Winning the stage, but also conserving energy for the days to come, was an unexpected bonus after a dramatic day on the trails. A slightly disappointed but by no means deflated Ariane Luthi and Amy Wakefield crossed the line in second. As soon as they did so, the recovery process began, cooling off, trying to bring their core temperatures down while awaiting the third place team. The podium places were completed by Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss, the Faces roller team conceding the best part of 4 minutes to the day's victors. Sophia Gomez-Villafan and Hayley Batten's winning time was 4 hours 50 minutes and 2 seconds. Ariane Luthi and Amy Wakefield were 1 minute and 49 seconds back, with Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss a further 2 minutes down. On the CM.com Women's General Classification standings, after 2 days of racing, 91 Songo Specialized now lead the battle for orange by 1 minute and 45 seconds over Simtech ZA. Faces Roller are third at 2 minutes and 53 seconds, but hold a 20-minute advantage in the Absa African Jersey race.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I mean, I think we knew that there were going to be some really strong women's teams in this year's event, and even on the first climb, like, the pace was hot, and all the way to the top we had to fight for that single track, and then from then on it was like full on, and we didn't even, they came out of nowhere on that steep climb, and we were like, okay, it's game. Like, we have no idea who's going to win at this point, and yeah, like, you're strong, you've trained, but really you just have to keep it together mentally and find the strengths of your teammate and really communicate well, fuel well, because you just have to get yourself to the line as fast as possible.
We obviously motivate each other during the stage. I was just saying, you're doing super well. For the majority of the first half, I would say we were lying in third, and we did well. And like I said to Pauline, I mean, the riders here have been preparing since December for Epic, and unfortunately there is nowhere to hide. It's a grueling course, and I think it was still a good performance.
In the age group race, Christoph Sauser and Carl Platt were chasing blue on stage 1. They had finished second to Mirko Pirazzoli and Miguel Martinez on the opening stage. Bart Brenchens and Abra Azevedo were already in purple. Manny Heymans and Genevieve Weber starting the day in green. With so much firepower in attendance, it was no surprise that the NTT Masters, Grandmasters and Mixed category races were firecrackers on stage 1, especially with the Songo 91 Epic Legends driving the A-batch pace. The top Exaro jersey teams were also in attendance in the group. After a fiercely contested prologue, there were a number of teams in contention for stage victory on day 2, including the Exaro Academy 2 team of William Majapolo and Kenneth Chukuru. Nobody could match the day's top NTT Masters team, however. The Songo 91 Epic Legends were the first A-batch riders to cross the line, reeling in and defeating a number of UCI men's teams in the process. Christoph Sauser and Carl Platt's storming ride through stage 1 gave them not only the stage victory, but also the NTT Masters general classification lead. The Songo 91 Epic Legends going to stage 2 with an 11-minute advantage on Fit to Bike Natural Berry. In the Grandmasters race, Bart Brenchens and Abra Azevedo added to their overall buffer, increasing it to 25 minutes over the Scots-Ram Old Dudes. Costa Ricans Heine Mora and Natalia Navarro fought their way into the mixed category lead, claiming the green jerseys of Manny Heymans and Genevieve Weber. 91 Songo Specialized 2s Zola Ngakeni and Nhlanhla Nonkasa worked their way into the Exaro jersey competition lead. Men from Stellenbosch hold a slender 22-second advantage over Exaro Academy 1's Hlala Lisani Ndebele and Tlotlo Selala. Stage 2 is the first transition stage of the race. It takes teams from Lourensford in the Helderberg Basin to Elandskloof. 123 kilometres separates the start from the day's finish, and 2,350 metres of climbing. After a relatively benign first 20 kilometres, the portage up the old Hantu Pass Oxwagon Trail was served to split the field. Back on their bikes in the Alpine Elgin Valley, single tracks and orchard roads traverse familiar terrain to the Absa Cape Epic Old Hands. The cut pass descent then leads into the Overberg wheat fields, where Van der Stel Pass and Jacques Climb await. 20 undulating kilometres leads the team towards Elandskloof. Nestled in a nook of the Sonderend Mountains near Greyton, the race village is the second of the 2022 race and home for 3 nights.